Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast. This is your escape for real, unscripted conversations about sports, hobbies, life, and storytelling. No scripts, no forced takes, just Man Cave talk. Now, here's your host, Dan Kasper.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of the Man Cave Podcast. I am your host, Dan Kasper, as always. Big thanks for tuning in to this episode of the podcast, whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you don't mind, it takes a few seconds to do so. If you could give us a 5-star rating, and if you're like on Apple, a positive review would go a long ways towards those algorithms out there to help spread the word of the Man Cave Podcast. So on this episode, we're just going to kind of recap and preview the upcoming, well, first of all, recap some of the moves that has already kind of gone on in the NFL ahead of free agency, legal tampering period beginning and such, and kind of looking ahead to some, well, it's going to be a busy week, to some big moves, which it's one of my favorite weeks of the calendar. So we're going to take a look at that, chat a little bit about that. But before we get into that, I want to open up this episode of the podcast. We're going to get a little personal here too. So last week was a difficult, very, very difficult week or difficult day, and it has been difficult so far for myself and our family. We had to, and it was a day that I was really, really, really dreading of happening, and I knew it was coming close, especially in the last few months and such. But we had to put our dog down of nearly 17 years, Bacardi, and just for anybody, there's a quote out there that says, it's a very popular one or phrase, and I don't know whoever came up with it, but a dog is a best man's friend, and I think people just kind of throw that out there. But anybody who is had a dog probably really resonates with that, and people who have never had a dog probably don't really get the full meaning of that quote, because unless you have had a dog and was very close to it for a very long time, that quote probably I guess what I'm trying to say here a little bit is that quote probably means just a little bit more, or dog owners really kind of get that quote more. I think that's just a phrase or a quote that gets thrown out there for, and people don't really think about it, but really when you have had a dog for a long time, or you're really close with a dog, you get why people say a dog is a best man's friend, I guess is what I'm trying to say here. But, Bacardi, our little dog, about 12 pounds. I mean, she was a mutt, mixture of a bunch. I remember I had my wife, Veronica, write out all the different breeds that she was, because people would always ask, what type of dog is she? And I could never remember, but I always remember in my wallet that I would carry a piece of paper with all the different breeds: Jack Russell Terrier, Bichon, Poodle, I'm missing some already just because it's, there was probably about half a dozen or so. But Bacardi, so I really was never a dog person, okay? I was never a dog person, but started to date my now wife back in 2009, the summer of 2009, and towards the end, it was Labor Day weekend. She got a dog from our mutual friends, and I remember going to pick it up and such. And it's like, okay, again, I'm not the biggest dog person, and at that time, Bacardi wasn't quite sure about me either. And I think a lot of it had to do with maybe a previous home. She had kind of a crooked tail and such. So there was kind of just some questionable, maybe some home stuff and then that. So maybe it was, she just seemed a little, standoffish towards guys initially. But I remember, one day at my apartment, and my now wife Veronica was over with the dog and Annette, and I had this really massive migraine, and I remember laying on the futon, and Bacardi jumped up, laid right next to me, and that was kind of the starts. Kind of maybe I was accepted into her wolf pack, if you will, and I started to get wrapped around her little paw, and nearly 17 years later, I mean, so many memories of, road trips to different ball tournaments, different moves to different homes, and just it's been really, really, really tough, and it continues to be really tough. I mean, she was there she was there at the beginning of the next phase of my life when I started to date my now wife. Bacardi was a part of the proposal, had the ring tied around her neck with a little note. She was in our engagement photo. She was the ring bearer for our wedding. I mean, she was kind of the first kid of the family. She was there when we brought Hudson home, and her and Hudson became incredibly close, especially within the last, year or so. He is like addicted to dogs, and I think, big part is because of having Bacardi in his life. So, it's just, it's been really, really tough, and there's so many memories and stories that I could probably tell you about Bacardi, but it's a huge loss in our family. And I just, throughout the years, I've seen people on social media talk about the loss of a dog and how hard it was for them, and just hearing these stories. And I've never gone through that before, and now that I've gone through it, I hear y'all. It sucks. It stinks. And I did not want to have to make that decision. I still feel guilty about it. I know I'm kind of opening up and that, but it sucks. And anybody who has gone through that, I hear you. And everybody says, as time goes along, it gets a little bit better, but I hope that's the case. But man, it stinks. So I guess I just kind of wanted to open up this episode of the podcast and just kind of talk about, in case I know some people have reached out privately and expressed condolences and that. So I just wanted to say thanks to that. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to honor Bacardi too, because that dog was, we'll probably get another dog and such, but nobody's going to live up to Bacardi, not to kind of set the standard high and such, but it's just, man, it sucks. It really sucks. And I now get all of you who have gone through this type of loss before. It stinks. So I guess I just wanted to kind of say thanks to people who I've never met, who have reached out, and to those who I have met to have reached out. Thanks for that. And kind of just want to say I fully get the quote now, why a dog is a man's best friend, because they really are, and they're family members too. They're family members too. So love you, Bacardi. Miss you, Bacardi, and we'll never forget you. So on that note, let's move into a little football talk. NFL free agency going to be opening up later on this week. We got legal tampering starting today. I know everybody, how do I want to phrase this? The diehards or the people involved say it's not legal tampering. Okay, let's just have a little fun with this. All right, it is kind of legal tampering because we're gonna technically, players can agree. I love, Schefter came out with a PSA that said players can agree to terms, but nothing's official. This is the day where we're going to see a lot of like these reports from these insiders saying so-and-so has agreed to terms with this team, and then they're going to tag the agents. So we know agents are the ones that are sending this to these NFL insiders and such. It kind of boosts up the agent's ego and such a little bit too. So, but we're going to have a plethora of those moves coming down the wire. Trades now can't become official until Wednesday when the new league year officially begins. And That's where we're going to lead off here because, well, we had a couple big trades. One, obviously, the Max Crosby trade. He gets traded to the Baltimore Ravens. So I guess, for Packers fans and Vikings fans, you're probably happy that he didn't get traded to the Chicago Bears, which, if you're an odds maker, follower, and such, that felt like the Bears had the best odds to acquire him. But he goes to the Ravens for a couple of first-round picks. So that was obviously the big one being reported out there. And, yeah, I mean, you look at that, that's I mean, if you're a Packers fan, you kind of probably get what Ravens fans are going through right now. They're pretty excited. They're pretty pumped to acquire a person like that to their defense and such. So, yeah, that's definitely a big-time earth-shattering move in the NFL world, NFL earth-shattering move. So, but with for Packers reportedly on Saturday also making a trade, sending defensive tackle Colby Wooden. Was pretty much, starter this year, was probably their best interior defensive run stopper. Wasn't the best in the league, wasn't, all Pro Bowl worthy, but given what they had on that team, probably their better run-stopping defensive tackle. Packers shipping him to the Indianapolis Colts for linebacker Zaire Franklin. So this trade tells us a couple of things. One, Quay Walker is not coming back to Green Bay. I mean, Green Bay does not make this move unless, they pretty much know that Quay Walker is not coming back. Now, I get it. Nothing's officially official here. But I feel like that's probably not going to be the case here. So, Zaire Franklin, 2024, was a second-team All-Pro, Pro Bowler. Healthy as all could be, knock on wood, that it continues that way in his 8 years. I mean, he's either played 16 or 17 games every single year of his career, for crying out loud. So, I mean, since 2022, he has had 167 tackles, 179 tackles, 173 tackles, 125 last year. And there's some thought Colts, little bit of a different style of defensive play last year that maybe didn't best suit him. He's more of a downhill attacking type of linebacker and such. So, but again, I think what this tells us is that Quay Walker is gone. And Franklin was a team captain. Those that follow the Colts and such say incredibly well respected within the locker room. I think you're bringing in a veteran presence. You're bringing in an experienced linebacker, and he's under contract here for the next couple of years. Quay Walker is probably going to get about, some reports saying about $15 million per year going forward. And when you got Franklin now, if you look at his contract last year, he signed a 3-year, little over $31 million deal. So his cap hit this year is $7 million. Next year is $9 million. But the key here is he doesn't have any more guaranteed money on his contract. So let's say after this year doesn't really work out, Packers can move on from him. And there would be a $0 dead cap hit. $0. You factor that into it, that's even more of an attraction, I think. I mean, there was reports in the last few days that the Colts were looking to move on from him, maybe trying to open up a little bit more space, or just maybe didn't fit as well in that style of defense that the Colts were now employing and such. But you look at, he's got a $0 dead cap hit going forward, and you look at what his cap hits are in the next couple of years. I like this move. I think it's a solid move. I think you're adding another veteran to this with Edgerrin Cooper and that linebacking group. And I think what it also tells us is we knew that Green Bay needed some upgrades and some depth at the defensive line, interior defensive line standpoint. And for anybody who wanted Green Bay to do that, this trading Colby Wooden for Franklin, kind of reinforces that, or maybe even makes it more of a necessity. Like, you have to go and now get a defensive tackle. It probably moves it up on the priority list now. Whether it's in free agency, whether it's in the draft, probably even both. But I think moving on from Colby Wooden, who is an early down type of defensive lineman, if you wanted Green Bay to get better in that department, to get a run-stuffing defensive lineman, to pair up with Devontae Wyatt and such, this move probably solidifies that Green Bay is going to do that. Again, whether it's in a draft, whether it's in free agency, probably even both. It's going to happen now. So, because you look at the depth chart outside of Devontae Wyatt, there's like Carl Brooks, if we're talking about just interior defensive linemen and that. I mean, Stackhouse, and I think he kind of fell out of favor a little bit towards the end. But there's going to be moves now when it comes to that interior defensive line standpoint. So, Quay Walker has, and again, I know it's not official yet. We know what he brings to the table in terms of an athleticism standpoint and speed and sideline to sideline sort of thing. And I think Green Bay last year really wanted to keep him, but I think they were maybe looking for him to just be a little bit more consistent this past year. And maybe they didn't get to see that. And they just don't like the dollar value that's going to come with Quay Walker. So bringing in a veteran linebacker that has, again, knock on wood, stayed healthy throughout his entire career, and pairing him up with an Edrin Cooper, and you add him into a defense with Micah Parsons and all that sort of stuff. I like this move. I like the fact that he's a captain. I like the fact that he's a well-respected voice within the locker room and such. I like the move. I like this move because all you did was ship a player over there too. There was no draft picks involved in this. You're bringing him aboard, and it kind of like, okay, it fills a need here, and it really enforces that they have to get better at interior defensive line. So I like it for multiple reasons. And then Sunday, the news that the Packers have signed Sean Rhyan to a 3-year deal, about $33 million. Could be a max of 39. Now, we don't know the full extent of the contract. That's where I will kind of say, just don't freak out too much, because you got a lot of the reporters out there throwing this nugget to Sean Ryan's deal, that he becomes one of the highest paid centers in the league after just making 9 starts. So let me just throw caution to the wind here. Again, these are agents that are throwing these nuggets to these insiders. Okay? The agents are the ones doing this. And you darn well know that an agent wants it out there that they got their guy to be one of the highest paid centers in the league. They want that thrown out there. It's a little bit of a marketing thing, right? It's like, hey, we got Sean Rhyan to be one of the highest paid centers in the entire league. So all these other players that maybe are looking for agents, like, wow, you got Sean Rhyan, all that money? Maybe I need to sign on with you, and maybe I need you to be my free agent. Now, the full details of it haven't been completely released. He has a signing bonus of $11 million. Remember, it's the guaranteed money we want to be looking at here. Guaranteed money. Signing bonus is a guaranteed money. $11 million, that's doable. But I want to see the breakdowns of everything going forward. So don't get caught up. Don't get caught up on the headline that says that Sean Rhyan is now one of the highest paid centers in the league. Well, 3 divided by 33 tells you an average salary of 11, potentially could more than that. Yeah, if you do it average year, but we know, right? We all know this, just as a reminder. It's not that simple when it comes to contracts. It's not that simple. So based off of average per year, yeah, probably is one of the more higher paid centers in the league. But that don't matter when it comes to cap hits. Let's see the breakdowns of everything, okay? Let's see that, how it's all broken down first. So don't freak out and be like, what in the world is Green Bay doing making him one of the top paid centers when he's played 9 games there? Take a step back. I like this move. I was shocked that they actually did. I thought Sean Ryan might be out. I thought they were going to look for, maybe drafting a center and such. And I still think they probably draft a center, but maybe not a day 2, maybe a late day 3 type of pick. I still think, they protect themselves and go in the draft and get a center. But what I think, making a move like this, not only is Sean Ryan going to be your starting center, so there's going to be a little familiarity there too, but it does, kind of still fit into the Green Bay narrative of like, okay, got a little bit of flexibility. The guy has played guard as well. So, you got that flexibility built within it. When he was, I think a lot of us would agree, between him and Elton Jenkins, Sean Ryan seemed to fit at that center position maybe a little bit more than Elton Jenkins at this point. So you bring a little continuity back to it. You bring a little bit more power back to it. If you kind of want a little bit more of a power bulldozer grading type of interior offensive lineman, a little bit more to help out in the, opening up holes for Josh Jacobs in the running game and that. But I think this also really kind of probably hammers home that Elton Jenkins is probably gone, especially when it was reported out there too that Aaron Banks' contract was altered, converted to clear up some cap space and such, just kicking the can down the road a little bit, right? So that's going to happen. You throw that at, we kind of know what week 1, knock on wood, there's no injuries, but we know what that starting offensive line unit now looks like. It's Jordan Morgan, it's Aaron Banks, it's Sean Ryan, it's Anthony Belton, and it's Zach Tom. And with those moves, that now, again, you go into the draft and maybe free agency, it's like, okay, we have a little bit more flexibility now. We kind of know what the top 5 are. We're not going to be handcuffed. Now we can add some depth pieces. We have a little bit more flexibility in what we can do here. We've got those spots figured out. Now we can do this, we can do that. And when you look at how everything's kind of lined up now on the salary cap, according to Spot Track, Jordan Love has the highest cap hit, which is no surprise. But if Green Bay wants to open up more cap space, their top 2, or 2 at number 2 and at number 3 in terms of the highest cap hit is Rashawn Gary and Elton Jenkins. The 2 players that we all expect will probably not be on Green Bay's roster this year. So Green Bay has now put themselves, I think, in a decent position where if they were to move on, let's say they just release Rashawn Gary. They're at about $8.6 million available in cap space right now. This does not factor in the Sean Ryan contract. Release Rashawn Gary. You move it up by $10 million. So you're looking at $18.7 million available in cap space. You release Elton Jenkins. That moves you up to about $37.4 million available in cap space. And according to our friend Rob Domofsky, it's not a foregone conclusion either that Nate Hobbs is going to be on this team. And right now, if you take Rashawn Gary and Elton Jenkins off, he's got the 5th highest cap hit. So let's just say they release Nate Hobbs. How much of a dead cap hit is that going to be? Honestly, it doesn't really move the needle a whole lot. So I think they've kind of put themselves in that position. If they want to release Nate Hobbs and move on from that, they can. I like the move so far that Green Bay has made to bring in Franklin, to re-sign Sean Ryan. Is he going to develop into a top 5 center in the league? I don't know. Let's see it play out. and let's see what the actual contract looks like. Don't pay attention to the $11 million per year. See the breakdown of it. You solidify that line, you bring a little continuity to it, and then you got some flexibility on what you can kind of go out there and do in terms of free agency and the draft next month.